Good afternoon and welcome everybody to Two-Man Game here on ClavesOnline.com. I'm Matthew Rocchio, that's Bob Ramsey, and we are back for season 2 of Two-Man Game. I couldn't be more excited. We're going to talk about some SLU basketball, we're going to talk about Mizzou, we're going to talk all about the college game, and of course, just a lot of NBA basketball. First of all, before we jump into any of that, I want to say a big thank you, and how was your offseason to Bob Ramsey?
It's been great. It's been really busy. And I can't believe that it's gone by so fast. For me, as a basketball fan, with St. Louis University taking a European trip in August, more news was coming instead of what's normally a real dead time. My schedule's worked out that I've been able to get to more practices than I was last year, which only makes me more fired up as every season rolls by.
Absolutely, and we're going to talk some SLU basketball today, but obviously tonight with the NBA's doubleheader premiere opening up the 2022-2023 NBA season, we're going to do a little bit of our NBA season preview a little bit later on in the show. But first, we are going to talk a little bit about those St. Louis Pelicans. We've been able to see some practices here both before and since that European trip here as they lead up. We've also gotten the chance to talk to Travis Ford and a couple of the star players for the Pelicans over the last few weeks. Right off the bat, Rammer, I think it's suffice it to say it's just everything we've heard about this team, especially all the offensive accolades after what we saw last year and getting Javonte Perkins back. Everything I've thought about, everything that's got me excited and had us excited for last year, it's carried over, and through these practices, it's only really been amplified.
It has been amplified. That's a great word, and I think that's exactly right. The core group that you expected to make a deep run in the NCAA tournament is back. You say, well, why is that so great? Because the key guy, the core of the core, Javonte Perkins, everybody knows by now, blew his knee out. It was ugly. It was a really bad injury. I'm actually surprised that he's back and working out and working as hard as he is now when I learned about the details of that really horrible knee injury. Now, as we record today, for those who aren't watching live, he hasn't been practicing for several days now because he rolled his ankle over. Some other nagging injuries. The Pelicans end up with 16 players on their roster by adding 3 walk-ons. And so you've got 3 or 4 guys out of practice. You can still have a full practice. There have been years, too many to appreciate over the years, where it's February and you got 8 guys who can practice, and so we see how depth is really, really important. So predictions this time of year don't mean a whole lot, but I'm very excited, and all expectations are for a team that's going to will have national recognition and earn it. And we can get into all the details, but with a very tough non-conference schedule, ranked 5th in the country right now, and a very good Atlantic 10, it's going to be quite a season.
Yeah, and like I said, everything. I think the biggest thing you said there that we're going to be talking about a lot this year is depth, and the question of how is that depth going to be utilized, and exactly how good is that depth, and where's the line that you kind of draw in the sand on that depth, where guys get playing time and they don't. That's going to be a big question here because, it was the practice before even the European trip. And me and Stu Durando are over there counting on our fingers like, well, that's 7, 8, that's 9 guys. I don't usually play 9 guys. So it was even before the preseason trip was over that we were already trying to do the math and figure it out. And I know that Travis Ford is already extremely annoyed at us for doing that, and he's going to have to get used to it because it's, like I said, it's going to be a topic throughout the entire SLU season.
And it's a great problem to have.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm the Billiken guy, right? Billiken Bob. So I like my guys even more than that. I can't get my rotation below 11. So you see how I am. So that's why Travis gets paid the big money, because he can and eventually will. We may see 9, 10. I don't imagine 11 with significant minutes, but 8 or 9 or 10 a lot, I think, early on. And, water seeps to its own level. guys will earn minutes, and it'll work itself out.
And I think one of the biggest things, and you had a chance to talk to Travis Ford a little bit earlier today on High Noon on 590, and the biggest thing that he was pointing out from what I heard was the defense. And I think that actually is what's going to push the rotation numbers higher into the 8, 9, 10 level is actually going to be the defense. We talk about a freshman like Kellen Thames, and I think it's really going to be defense that actually gets him minutes. It's gone from him potentially maybe getting, those 6 or 7 minutes as a backup point guard, because those are the only real backup point guard minutes that exist on this SLU roster as it's constructed now. But
go ahead.
But now it's gone to him just being more of a pure wing because of his defensive ability with how tall and how long he is. And so as much as we want to talk about the offense, and this year we are going to talk a lot about this offense, as Travis Ford said earlier to you, defense really should be kind of the through line of this SLU season.
Because you can score.
Exactly.
You have to figure out who and how to score. And I've always said, and it really makes great defenders pretty mad at me, in every sport, defense is technique and desire. I think anybody can play defense. Oh, defenders get really mad. Well, the guys who are great, they got great technique, and they make it their business. I stole that from Jordair Jett, former Billiken guard, who was a great defender. I make it my bleeping business. Anyway, when you look at it, you could almost do a 2-platoon offense-defense with the only two that remain on the floor for both are Yuri Okoro, and if you say Pickens starts, those three, and then you can add Thatch and move Jake Forrester to a 4 and do things like that. And if you want to go just run, shoot, and holler, let's score as many buckets as we can, as fast as we can. You throw in with Jimerson and Perkins and Okoro and Collins, and you put in Sincere Parker, and let's go. Let's get after it. So you've already kind of figured out a big part of our rotation. Here's a guy, I'm not making a prediction because it's not fair to a freshman. I want to emphasize that. This is just me watching with my eyes big and stars in my eyes. The guy I'm seeing at practice, making things happen, practice after practice after practice, is Larry Hughes Jr., and I'm seeing getting more and more clock at point guard.
Oh.
I'm just saying. He's diving for loose balls. He's the guy blocking out for rebounds. He's the guy that's dribble, drive, pull up. He's the guy hitting an occasional 3. He's handling the rock. He's passing it. Can he defend at the point? Sometimes that's kind of the key deal. Fred Thatch can. He can guard anybody in the Atlantic 10.
Mm-hmm.
So other people who have designs on that position, that's got to be their thing. So I'm not making a prediction. No coach has said any of this to me. It's just what I'm seeing. And I think you could eventually get some minutes from him behind Larry Hughes. And this is the automatic disclaimer that most people should know anyway. We're talking 5 minutes a game.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's 4 or 5 minutes. That's all backup point guard is on this roster right now. It's 4 minutes. So you got to figure out those. But the problem is, I think, and why it's been such a big question for people, and why I think Fred Thatch makes sense if it's not Larry Hughes Jr., is that usually those 4 or 5 minutes is when things went horribly, horribly wrong for SLU last year. And so you get a veteran presence in there to slow it down and just facilitate the ball to a Gibson Jimerson or to a Javonte Perkins and things like that. And here's another thing. If Fred Thatch is the one nominally, Javonte Perkins is on the floor, Javonte Perkins is probably going to touch the ball at the timeline, and then there's the offense is going to go from there. And that's just speaks also to the versatility SLU has. And we're going to be talking a lot of St. Louis basketball, obviously, here with Bob Ramsey. We're going to be doing some player and coach interviews here on Two Man Game throughout the season. It's going to be a fun one. We hope you stick here on ClavesOnline.com and with the Two Man Game throughout SLU season. It's going to be incredible. We got a few more weeks before they really get started, and we're going to have a lot of ramp up to that St. Louis Billiken season. With that said, not a lot of ramp up, just a few hours until the NBA season for 2022-23 kicks off. So we're going to jump into our NBA preview. And here's what I have for you, Rammer. Here's what I have for the listeners as well. They're here too. I got a 5x5, and by that I got 5 lists of my top 5. And this is going to kind of let us ramp into everything we really need to know about the NBA season. Who are the favorites? Who are the best teams? What were some of the best moves that made us change our minds about those teams? And who are the players and teams that if you're just saying it's a Thursday, it's a Saturday, I want to watch a little basketball because I'm a basketball fan, well, here's the games you can hunt out here. Here's some of the players that you can hunt for as well. So, right off the bat, go ahead.
Before you get into the list, a couple of quick little notes from me because your stuff's going to be the meat. Very excited for former Billiken, one of the all-time great Billikens, one of the all-time great defenders, Jordan Goodwin, makes the roster on a two-way deal with Washington to be with another St. Louis and Bradley Beal. So now I have officially my NBA team. However, I'm not walking away from the Memphis Grizzlies. Former TCU guard Desmond Bain, one of my very best friends was in my wedding, sideline guy, and much, much, much more for the Grizzlies, Rob Fisher, and of course, former St. Louis and assistant coach for the Grizzlies, Blake Ahern. And then my third NBA team obviously has to be the Celtics because of a one Mr. Tatum. So those are the glasses I'm looking at the NBA through going into the season.
Can I just say one thing before I get into these five lists? And I just want a quick answer from you. That's it, which is you mentioned the Boston Celtics. With Ime Udoka not on the sideline and the suspension and some of the consternation and lack of communication that some of the players felt from the front office, do you think the Celtics have a drop-off this season?
I think it's something they have to battle. I don't know enough about them internally to know if they'll be successful, but I know that's something that probably has already been dealt with, but will need to be something that will be has to be closely watched at least through the first couple of months of the season. I think that's a great concern.
That they're one of the few teams, and because they're good, but there's so many question marks around them not having their head coach. They're one of the few teams I didn't really touch on very much in any of these lists, but it's a fascinating story to me because really the players' comments after the whole fallout and the lack of communication from the front office to the players and how it clearly bothered players like Marcus Smart and Jaylen Brown. That it's the same reason why I'm not very high on the Suns this year, because when you have a player and a coach who clearly do not see a lot of things on the same page, I just think it creates problems in the organization, and it's hard to have a cohesive winning team at the level you need to be a championship squad. So with that said, we are going to dive into some of the other teams. Lists. Bob Ramsey loves a good list. So right off the bat, Ramsey, I'm picking the team most likely to win 60 games. There was just one team to do it last year. That was the Phoenix Suns. Usually we get one or so every year. So this one is, in fact, in order. These are my teams most likely to win 60 games this year. And number one on the list is a team that Bob Ramsey is going to be watching a lot. I just think math makes sense for this team, and that is the Memphis Grizzlies. They won 54 games last year without a healthy Ja Morant. If Ja Morant's healthy this year, math tells me they should be able to win 6 more games, not to mention the continued progress of a guy like Jaren Jackson Jr., Desmond Bain getting a little bit better as a two-man player. And they've kind of changed some things. Santi Aldama's the new power forward going into this year. Is he kind of an X factor? I still think guys like Tillman are super important for this team. Brandon Clark had a little bit of a kind of comeback to his early years. Right now, I got the Grizzlies as my most likely for 60 wins.
I predict that the next 4 teams, 3 of the next 4 will be Eastern Conference.
Oh, you got 2 of the next 4 Eastern Conference. I do love the Eastern Conference, but I think some of then it's 2 of the next. It's 2 of the next 4.
I missed one. Okay,
you missed one. My number 2 is actually going to be the Los Angeles Clippers, because if they're healthy, they are going to be an absolute juggernaut. We talked about depth with SLU. You don't see a lot of college basketball teams that can artfully use maybe 11, 10 guys. When you see it in the NBA and a team and a coach can do it, it's deadly. And to that point, Missouri native Tyronn Lue is one of the best coaches strategically in the NBA. He has a group of 11 guys deep. It's unbelievable. Terrence Mann, who was a rookie last year, who gave them 10 points per game on 47, 38, and 80, pretty solid line. He's the 11th man now if they're healthy. Just to have shooters like that coming off the bench, they are so insanely deep. Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, Reggie Jackson, Marcus Morris, Zubac is that their starter. Then the second group, John Wall, Norman Powell, Luke Kennard, who was the best three-point shooter in the NBA last year, Nick Batum, and then a small ball five in Robert Covington. That is an insane amount of depth. It's an insane amount of shooting. It's an insane amount of versatility throughout up and down the roster. My Clippers are my number 2 on that one.
Okay.
Number 3 is going to be the 76ers, followed by the Bucks at number 4. I think it makes sense. Your 2 top East teams, I'm going to put them right there. I had a little bit of question about the 76ers and the Bucks. The only reason, again, this is about winning 60 games, not necessarily being the best team. I still think the Bucks are going to have parts of the year where they just pull their foot off the brake, put off the gas a little bit because they know what kind of team they are. They know that staying healthy is just going to be as important as winning a lot of games and ramping up at the right time. So I honestly think the only reason the Bucks don't do it is because things like last year where Giannis, Middleton take games off, play a little bit less at times. That's the only reason I have the 76ers a little bit above them. Younger team with guys like Tyrese Maxey still trying to prove themselves, trying to get big contracts. They're going to be playing a little bit harder on a consistent basis. They don't have a championship in their belt. They can't slough off any more than James Harden already does. That's the only reason I have the 76ers a little bit higher than the Bucks in my chance here. Okay. And number 5 is what's going to surprise you. Because if he has the seasons he should have, if he shows up tomorrow evening just a little bit more svelte, he's going to be in the MVP conversation. We'll talk about that a little later.
Not Dallas.
Most likely to win enough 60 games is, in fact, the Dallas Mavericks. The West isn't as deep as the East. The East is legitimately 10 or 11 teams deep. The West just simply isn't. It's maybe 6 teams deep, which means that Dallas is going to have a little bit easier of a schedule than some of those East teams. I think Luka's going to go off. I think the team they've built over the last few years, getting Kristaps out of there, getting Christian Wood, who's motivated to be a dominating kind of player, getting him in there, and kind of what we saw last year against the Suns, their ability to take over with their three-point shooting. Again, I'm not saying that they're built to win a championship better than some of the other teams I've named, but in the regular season, they are going to be absolutely dominant this year if Luka's dialed in.
Okay.
It's a little surprising, I know, but I'm telling you, the Mavericks are going to be good if Luka's dialed in. And in fact,
you don't want to be boring. That's a good pick. I like it.
And in fact, I'm going to jump right down to our second list. That's going to be my favorite MVP candidates, not named Joel, Jokic, or Giannis, because that's the top 3. Obviously, it's been the battle the last 3 years. Jokic has won the last 2. Giannis won the one before that. And obviously, a lot of people think Embiid should have gotten one of the 3 in there. So take out those 3 because they're going to be the favorites the entire season. Who are my MVP candidates not named those 3? So Ja Morant, right off the bat, he was in the conversation when he wasn't injured last year. He's in the conversation again. Number 2, the guy that I think should have been in it more last year, it's Devin Booker. If the Suns,
you love Booker, that's good.
I do, but if the Suns are still a 50-win team, even with the problems, it's going to be because Devin Booker keeps getting better, because Aiden isn't going to be as motivated. Chris Paul's a year older, and he I think is going to start understanding, or at least the Suns should start understanding, him playing 82 games is not what you want. You want to be in the playoffs with him having played 55 games and chosen to not play those 27 games because he knows he needs to be healthy for the playoffs. So if they're a 50-win team, it's because of Devin Booker, so he should be in there. Again, Luka Doncic is in there because if they're a 60-win team, it's absolutely because of Luka Doncic. That's why he's in there. Here's where things get a little hinky. I'm going to go with some young players. These are more of my Ja Morant last year kind of models.
Sure.
One of the teams you're hearing about that a lot of people are saying, watch this team, they could jump up. In fact, our man Mike Claiborne said it earlier today when he was on the opening drive on ESPN. The Timberwolves got a chance to jump up.
I thought they were going to be one of your long shot 60-win teams. The Timberwolves are excellent.
I got them on a slightly different list. The Timberwolves are going to be good, and it's not Karl Anthony Towns for me. If the Timberwolves jump up into a top 4 team, it's because Anthony Edwards is a freaking rocket ship. That's what happened. Okay, and here's the thing. We know Anthony Edwards is an incredible offensive player, but it always comes down to defense. You talk about effort. And he's one of those guys where if you're a young star offensively and you know the money's coming, is the effort defensively going to develop? In a preseason game, he blocked a Kevin Durant turnaround. Now, again, I want you to think about this for a moment. Kevin Durant is 7 feet tall, and he knows how to shoot a turnaround, which means just like Kobe style, he keeps it high and away. And so when he comes up, it's not exactly Dirk. He's not back here, but it's up here, and that's a full lot of elevation. And Anthony Edwards elevated to block that shot. If he has effort in his defense, he's Tracy McGrady without the injuries. I mean, that's what he is. He's a 6'8" shooting guard. He's Tracy McGrady without the injuries. And he's a better three-point shooter than T-Mac was. And even for the not relative to the time, just hard numbers, he's better than T-Mac was. The sky is the limit for a guy like Anthony Edwards. And so he's got to be in the list if we're giving it to guys like Ja. And then number 5, if he's healthy, this is a very kind of stereotypical media pick. I can't get away from it, though. I want to be down on him, but I can't. If Zion Williamson is healthy for a whole season, the Pelicans are a playoff team, and therefore he will get MVP consideration. There's no doubt in my mind about it. If Zion Wilson's healthy and they're good, he's an MVP candidate because the media loves him. It's a reach. It's a reach. Because here's the thing. Should he be above certain other stars that maybe are top 3 or 4 teams? I mean, he shouldn't be above a guy like Stephen Curry if the Warriors are a top 3 team in the West, but he will be. I have no doubt in my mind, if he's healthy and the Pelicans are a playoff team, he's absolutely going to get MVP talk because he's going to do things in games people have never seen, and the NBA media is just it's like a little kid on Christmas with him finally being healthy. Oh, yeah.
You want to tear open the new present. That's an interesting pick because I think it's a great situation or great observation because people say, why isn't this guy the MVP or whatever? And I'll say, well, look, you got people voting. So look at the constituency of the voters, and that helps you explain the deal. So that's a great call. I like it.
All right, our next list is going to be this year's Memphis. Okay, so Memphis Grizzlies 2 years ago in the bubble were 38-30 or 38-34. They were 4 games above 500 in the shortened bubble in the shortened 2020 season. Last year they won 56 games, and so instead of being 4 games over 500, they were 30 games over 500. So can there be a team that makes that kind of jump, or what team outside of maybe the top 4 or 6 in each conference could make that kind of jump? I think right out of the bat, it's one of the teams that we were just mentioning. It's the New Orleans Pelicans.
You're surprising me.
You have Zion Williamson, if he's healthy. You have Brandon Ingram, who legitimately, do not be shocked by this. You're going to look to the scoring chart at the end of the season, and you're going to see, Brandon Ingram scored 29 points per game. It's going to be something like crazy like that. He's going to score upwards of 28, 29 points per game as the second fiddle to Zion Williamson. And just those two, not even to mention, you got guys like Alvarado, picking people's pockets in the backcourt, and Dyson Daniels, the rookie, who's going to be a great defensive player and versatile wing. You have other players on that roster, but those two right off the bat, that's going to be watchable, and that's going to take them from winning 35 games last year. That'll take them to 55 games. I mean, it's going to be fun to watch. And the other one, number 2, I'm cheating a little bit here.
Before you go on, let me respond. I should be responding more, but I'm enjoying the list. Everybody knows I'm a baseball guy. Zion, I feel like he could be the NBA's Tyler O'Neill.
Oh.
He's hell when he's well, but he's always hurt. Now, let me continue with that comp because 1 year ago, Tyler O'Neill was the Cardinals' best player. And so if Zion Williamson can play a season with nominal injury, maybe all your things are coming to fruition.
You know what? I'll take a maybe from Bob Ramsey any day of the week. Also, I forgot CJ McCollum's on that Pelicans team too. So I mean, it's just they're a darn good roster, and now they get their superstar. And again, okay. I'm saying that as I'm also saying one of their forwards is going to score almost 30 points per game. That's a lot to get excited about. I'm cheating a little bit on this one, so I'm splitting it down the middle because everyone knows the Clippers were better than a 500 team last year. But at the same time, I think the Timberwolves got a soft schedule and won more games than they should have. So I'm going to cheat a little bit and say my number 2 is going to be the Clippers / the Timberwolves. Whichever way you want to call me cheating and which one's worse, I'll take the other team you're mad about. But either way, those teams are going to make a 15 to 20 game jump from the early 40s to close to 60. That's just the fact of the matter. The Clippers, if they're healthy, they have two of the best 15 players in the world. There it is right there. And then Anthony Edwards is a monster. Karl Anthony Towns loves to shoot the ball. If you think you're like, yeah, I know Karl Anthony Towns can shoot the ball. Trust me, he shoots more than you think he does. He shoots 8 threes per game at 7 feet tall. And now he gets to play power forward some of the game because they got Rudy Gobert in a huge trade. They're going to be a good team. They're going to win 45 to 50 games. So it's going to be a jump for them, and it's going to be fun to watch, which is surprising because, again, we're talking about the Timberwolves. This is another one where I think you're going to tell me I'm crazy. The Sacramento Kings.
Are they still in the league?
Surprisingly, yes. And even more surprisingly, they've built a pretty solid team. De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis, we saw last year after the trade where they sent Tyrese Halliburton to the Pacers and got Sabonis. They paired for one of the best 1-2 punches pick and roll in the entire game. A pretty good two-man game. De'Aaron Fox also happens to be a pretty solid defensive player when he wants to be. And they've surrounded him with shooters. They already had Kevin Huerter. They already had Harrison Barnes. And they got a guy I'm talking about on my next list, and that's Keegan Murray out of Iowa. The kid puts on a show. He scores the living daylights out of the ball. They got Malik Monk. Davion Mitchell, one of the best defensive players we've seen come out of college basketball in the last 5 years, I'd say, is still on that team and can shut down second teams. They have some problems, obviously. They're not the deepest roster. They're not the Clippers going 12 deep, but there's a lot of talent there that could lead to, again, more like a 12 to 18 game jump for them. And again, the West, not nearly as deep as the East. It's surprising to some, but I love what the Sacramento Kings are starting to do, which means inevitably they will be terrible and blow it up and have to completely restart by like November.
No, I like it.
That's what happens.
You're looking around for some picks. Okay, what's next?
Number 4 is going to be the Cleveland Cavaliers, because when you have one more year of Evan Mobley, you have more health, and you have Donovan Mitchell, you're going to make a jump. The reason why they're down a little bit lower is they don't have as far to jump as the other teams. The East is harder, and that's why they were a little bit further down. So They don't, I think, even with Donovan Mitchell, I don't even think they have the ceiling of a top 3 team. But at this point, I think between 4 and 6 is right there for the Cavs' sweet spot. That would be a little bit of a jump for them. Can they get some more bench scoring from some of the players that they've acquired over the last year or so? That's really the big question, because we know what we got from Darius Garland, we know what we got from the big men, and now we know what we got from Mitchell. But the classic 3-and-D guys who take you from a 40-win team to a third round in the playoff kind of team, that's the question. Are they on this roster? Did they just draft a couple of them? We're going to see. Number 5, and I have them on another one of the lists a little bit later on, the Orlando Magic. And that's just because they were so god-awfully terrible last year. All they would have to do is just basically scrape by 500 to qualify the 26-win jump. And the reason why they're going to is Paolo Banchero is very good, and they have a lot of good young players who, should they all peak this season at different times, they're going to be a 35 to 40-win team, because they have Franz Wagner, they have Markelle Fultz, who's not great, but still a little bit better than he has been in the past. Cole Anthony's a scorer. Jalen Suggs, there's a reason why he was a top pick. I can still think we're going to see it. And I honestly believe one of the most underrated player in the entire NBA is Wendell Carter Jr. I think, as much as I like Nikola Vucevic and think he's a very good fantasy center, I do think that when you talk about youth and the ability to be a rim protector, guard on the perimeter, and be a three-point shooter, Wendell Carter Jr. is one of the most underrated guys in the entire NBA. He's kind of just like a slightly 1 or 2 years behind Jaren Jackson Jr., and he doesn't foul as much. I mean, he's that kind of versatile, but no one talks about him because he's in Orlando. That's going to be a fun team to watch, and just by the fact that they're terrible, they're going to make a big jump. I'm not saying it's going to be up to 50 wins, but it's going to be up to 35, something at least, respectable. And hey, I'm talking a lot about the rookies. I got Paolo Banchero already on this previous list. I got Keegan Murray on this previous list. So we're going to talk about who my most exciting rookie is, and that is right off the top. It is Keegan Murray. 6'9" scorer out of Iowa, which seems to be a weird statement right now because we're in the middle of Iowa football season, and they can't score at all. But he is a scorer out of Iowa. It exists. Believe me. And if you watch Sacramento Kings, you won't have to wait very long to see why I'm saying that. He's going to jump out of the gym. 6'9", he's got great range on his three. He can just hammer it down. I think when you think about him as a driving kick option from the De'Aaron Fox and the Domantas Sabonis pick and roll, he's going to get as many opportunities as possible because they do not have a lot of depth. They have to get their young players good quick. Keegan Murray's my number one right now. He's not the betting favorite. That guy's a little bit later down on my list, but I think there's a good chance on a better team than the Orlando Magic, the Sacramento Kings, that Keegan Murray could compete for the Rookie of the Year right out of the gate. Number 2 on the list, not St. Louis's own, but pried a little bit from St. Louis. We're going to talk a little bit about Jaden Ivey. Obviously, the connection through his mother here to St. Louis. We love Jaden Ivey. We're going to talk plenty of Pistons basketball this year. And when you pair him with Cade Cunningham, I really think they're going to have something special. He's a whirlwind. He's a tornado once he gets into the paint. He's an absolute menace. He's got a good jumper, especially in that setback's a lot more deceptive than I think a lot of people expect. He's going to just play a ton of minutes. He's going to score a ton of points for the Pistons. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch. I do not know how good the Pistons are going to be. They have some good young players, Isaiah Stewart, Jalen Duran, the big man they just drafted this past year, as well as Cade Cunningham. Killian Hayes is up there. He's a defensive stopper. I never know what to do with those guys, like we were just talking about with Davion Mitchell on the Kings. But Jaden Ivey is going to have as many chances in the world to just score as much as he wants. And he's got pedigree and he's got skill. And trust me, if you want to watch some fun basketball, anytime you see a Pistons game for the first time in a long time, I would say actually turn it on.
There you go.
Number 3, Benedict Matheran. That's the Indiana Pacers guard out of Arizona. He's just a show. He's a showman. I mean, he's gonna pull up from 30 and hit threes. He's going to dunk on people like crazy, and he's gonna play a lot because the Pacers are in that weird spot where they don't know if they should completely tear things down by trading away Miles Turner or if they should try to rebuild on the backs of Tyrese Halliburton, Miles Turner, and now maybe Benedict Matheran. I'm not sure what that decision is going to lead to. For all we know, by December, they've shipped off Miles Turner, and now Matheran's playing 35 minutes and shooting the hell out of the ball. Either way, I think we're talking about a very good guard over the next 10 years or so in the NBA. He's going to be fun to watch with the Pistons, and I think he's got an outside chance of Rookie of the Year. And now my bottom 2, I went completely different ways. 1, he's the favorite. I think you've got to look at him. Paolo Banchero is going to be a lot of fun to watch with the Orlando Magic. 6'10", big body. He can shoot the ball. They're going to give him every chance in the world to be a scoring monster. This isn't a shot against Jabari Smith. The Houston Rockets were an annoying basketball team to watch last year with Jalen Green and Kevin Porter Jr. And I'm not hugely excited to watch them. So nothing against Jabari Smith, but Paolo Banchero with some more talent around him in Orlando, just more exciting to watch him. With that said, I actually am excited to watch a forward in Houston, and that's Terry Eason. A lot of people would think I'd be going with Jabari Smith here, but I'm trying to give you a little bit more in-depth look. He's the sophomore out of LSU who they drafted in the middle of the first round this year. Big body, 6'9", 220. He's going to play both center and power forward. You'll see him maybe as the 4 when they play Jabari Smith up to a 3. He's going to be the 5 when they play Jabari Smith at a 4 when they kind of go a little bit smaller for more skill. And he's going to be a guy who, about maybe January, February, we're talking about, the Rockets not being good, but they're showing more from their young players. And it wouldn't surprise me if, even more so than Jabari Smith, we have rave reviews coming from him the first couple of months out of the gate there in Houston. I think he's lower on the rung because he's behind one of the top 2 picks in the entire draft. Or top 3 picks in the entire draft, excuse me. But I think Terry Eason out of LSU, he's got to be on people's radar this year.
Okay. That's a good group.
And my last one is going to be my League Pass mini rankings. You can find League Pass rankings everywhere, but I choose to watch teams for really weird reasons, as you can tell by me picking Terry Eason on my rookies to watch list. So my League Pass mini rankings, I'm going to be so incredibly annoying about the Denver Nuggets this year, and I don't care.
I've been waiting for you to mention them. I've been waiting for you to mention them.
It's been coming. Don't worry. It's I have to hold it back sometimes. I don't want to be too crazy with it. So yeah, it's the Denver Nuggets. They're number 1 on my list. They're going to be incredible. If Jamal Murray, Michael Porter Jr. are both healthy, and the other impact moves they've made to this offense, adding guys like Bruce Brown, getting deeper overall throughout the entire team. If these players are all healthy, then the Nuggets are up there. I should have put them in my top 5 to win 60. I think maybe just because Jokic naturally has to pull back a little bit. Maybe something bad happened. I don't know. They have so many injuries. Something probably bad will happen. But until that, you got to watch the Denver Nuggets. The offense is going to be unbelievable. Jokic is a two-time MVP. The only reason he won't win a third MVP is because people are going to be so angry about him winning two, they're never going to give him a third in a row. It will not happen. I don't care what. He could score 50 points a game this year. They will find a way to give it to somebody not named Nikola Jokic after two in a row. But beyond that, he's going to be a blast to watch. Number two, I talked about him a lot. You should know why they're number two on my list by now. If they're healthy, it's the Los Angeles Clippers. They're 11 deep right off the bat, and they got two of the best players in the entire league. Number three, I haven't mentioned them a lot because I don't know what to expect of them after their playoff appearance last year. That is the Atlanta Hawks. Now, they made a big move in getting Javonte Murray from the San Antonio Spurs. That gives them another guard. That gives them more defense on the perimeter because Trae Young is a turnstile. But he's also one of the most electric players offensively we've ever seen in the NBA, or at least over the last 5 or 10 years. Yeah. So can John Collins turn his game around? Can Clint Capella stay healthy? And can DeAndre Hunter, who they just handed almost $25 million a year, they gave him 4 years, $95 million, as a guy who regressed last year. He came back down from 15. He was at 15, 5, and 2 years ago. Last year, he was at 13, 3, and 1, and they gave him 4 years and $95 million. Can he live up to that money? If he does, the Hawks are going to be a blast to watch. I talked about the Orlando Magic already. You know why they have to be high on my list. They have crazy young players at literally every position, from Cole Anthony to Franz Wagner to Paulo Banchero. If you have League Pass, you're going to have a lot of NBA to watch. Watch some Orlando Magic. And number 5, we talked about at the very top of the show because our man from SLU is going to be getting into some games. Number 5 on the list, it's the Washington Wizards. There's no reason you shouldn't get excited for Danny Advia. There's no reason you shouldn't get excited for year 4 of Rui Hachimura. How about Johnny Davis, their top 10 pick out of Wisconsin? There's plenty of reasons to watch the Washington Wizards, including our SLU boy, Jordan Goodwin.
Jay Good has made it. Hey, before we go, and I know we went a little longer than we want to on our opening show of the season, one team you barely mentioned, and I'm surprised, but maybe it's because of the dysfunction, the Golden State Warriors.
Yeah, I mean, they won another championship last year, but here's the thing. They just gave extensions to Andrew Wiggins and noted punching bag Jordan Poole. The weird thing for me is that, and I was going to mention this, Draymond Green is going to be doing an in-season documentary that has apparently already started. The first episode is going to be talking about him dealing with the fallout from his event. And if that's the case, I just got one thing to say. That was good acting by Jordan Poole.
I don't think so. I think
he's got a freaking documentary that he announces he's going to be shooting in season of the week after he's serving his suspension for punching his teammate and taking over the sports world. Oh my God! I mean, it should have been, because the way the script's writing out, it would seem like it was a setup. If this was a storyline in Succession, this would have been a setup. Because everyone wants to watch this documentary now, because he's going to have to talk about how he just punched a teammate who then a couple of days later woke up to a 4-year, $140 million extension from the team.
Give me a second. I'm looking for my tinfoil to make a hat. No, I love it because I'm a conspiracy theory guy.
Exactly.
I love it.
Here's the thing about the Warriors. I'll say this, and I'll say this, and this will be the last thing I'll say. They are going to pay more cash for a sports roster than anybody ever has in the history of sports on this planet. Barcelona, PSG, all those big soccer clubs were paying out $400 million in straight cash. Well, you got a $240 million payroll, but because of the luxury tax, they're paying $2 for every dollar they're paying players. So they have right now the costliest roster in professional sporting history.
Wow.
And now they just added more extensions with Jordan Poole and Andrew Wiggins. There's not more money for Draymond Green, and there's sure not more money for players punching the 5-year, $140 million investment you just made. I don't think he's on the Warriors after this year.
We're out of time, but let's make a show somewhere down the road soon about dysfunction and possible dysfunction, because we already touched on the Celtics. We'll see how they do. And the other one the other team is the Brooklyn Nets, how that's going to work. They may not be dysfunctional, but we all expect them to be. So we need to make that a topic.
Yeah, Steve Nash, it's going to be an interesting hot seat to watch throughout the entire season. But like you said, we've run a little long. My apologies, remember, I just got so excited about the NBA season. It starts tonight. I didn't even mention the Lakers, but all I wanted to do was make fun of them, so it wasn't going to go anywhere anyway. Philadelphia 76ers and the Boston Celtics, they open up the season, and then it is the Los Angeles Lakers and the Golden State Warriors tonight. Game 2 of the NBA season. Rammer, thank you so much for joining me. We're going to be back for another episode of Two-Man Game coming up here very shortly. Before we go, though, please tell everybody about Royal Banks of Missouri.
Royal Banks of Missouri, where better service means better banking. For over 50 years, Royal Banks has been in St. Louis and now expanding to St. Charles and Northeast Missouri and on the east side in Jerseyville and Granite City. Wherever they are, it's always your hometown bank. Royal Banks, where better service means better banking.
And if you ever need to get that car fixed, take it to Munganast St. Louis Acura. It doesn't matter if you bought it there. I didn't buy my car there, but I keep taking it there. And when I buy my next car, it definitely will be from them. They're the best there at Munganast St. Louis Acura. Thank you again, Rammer. You have a great rest of your day.
You bet, buddy. See you next time.
Talk to you later, St. Louis.
St. Louis Acura has an unbeatable selection of new cars arriving daily, like the all-new 2023 Acura Integra. We also have a great selection of over 200 pre-owned and factory precision courtesy vehicles with finance rates as low as 1.9% for 36 months with approved credit. And we've added Saturday service hours to our newly renovated service facility. Don't forget, we'll buy your vehicle here at our dealership or from the convenience of your home. St. Louis Acura, better than ever for you.